In terms of the access to the data, do you see challenges around that? So if we've talked kind of conceptually about this pulling areas of responsibility
Mhm.
out of the ERP, or maybe performing them before the data gets into the ERP. Are there any
Yeah,
particular opportunities or challenges that you see around the access to the data?
we do, and it's because there is some inherent coupling inside of those ERPs, where, for instance, there might be a ripple effect back into finance and accounting, meaning in order for your books to reconcile and in order for the balances to add up, it might need to have complete visibility of all transactions, inbound or outbound. And that is something that the ERPs are managing by standard, I would say, to make it easy to actually operate as a business, right? And make your compliance, legal, financial commitments easy. But it also goes in and makes it hard at times to actually get that data out of the system, or simply allow that ERP to be a consumer of other systems' data altogether. So there are some inherent complexity of there being a tight coupling inside of some of these ERPs. And that tight coupling is I'm sure good for many reasons. And one of the reasons is that it ultimately needs to make sure that books are in balance, right? That is one of the overarching responsibilities of an ERP at this point in time, that you're in compliance, both financially and legally. And that is what these ERPs are managing to a big degree.
Yeah, I think that is a very good example of where not messing with the core functions of ERPs. We're not talking about replacing ERP for its core functions like GL, as you really eloquently described. But in order for me to be legally compliant and to balance my books, I'm not interested in how many times a customer sought out the fulfillment approach that I might take if I needed this black t-shirt and wanted to buy it online and pick up in store. That's not relevant to an ERP in terms of its GL
No,
functioning, nor is it particularly well suited to perform a very high volume of those requests
not,
on a
yeah,
regular
no,
basis. There's a good example where you should be doing that somewhere else. But as a system of record for the ultimate transaction, should I choose to buy one, absolutely it needs to flow through to the ERP. And I
yeah,
think that's really where I've seen ERPs hit some limitations, is they're not designed
yeah,
as systems that are accessed in real time at extreme scale.
no,
The
no, it's
extremely
not.
reliable long-term storage and long-term management and auditability and traceability. And right up top, you talked about, order to cash processes. That's where they've really, really excelled, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even sometimes, and now we're starting to dig into it, right? So it might be a bit confusing. But if you talk about, for instance, store replenishment in a intercompany setup, meaning you have multiple business entities, you have multiple P&Ls, and you need to make sure the right cost and the right revenue are being kind of correlated in the right place. That also inherently means that store replenishment, or it could be business replenishment or corporate replenishment, needs to be managed somewhere. And that is a part of that reconciliation that does happen, even though replenishment is an active component of an availability to promise, as an example, too. So it's this super complicated like equation that kind of compute inside of these systems that we're trying, again, I find logic in freeing up that data to make sure it becomes less confined within any given system, but it becomes the belonging of the holistic architecture, because then we can start to actually cooperate on some of those data pieces. And I believe holistically that event-driven architectures, for instance, is a big component of that for some certain types of data sources, where clearly having real-time access to data streams is essential in some certain use cases too. Neither of those two is typically seen as the strength of any ERP, to be very honest with you. They're typically not good at real time, and nor are they often equipped with event-driven architectural APIs.